Ponte Vecchio, Italy, before the city fully awakens, when Florence is still wrapped in a soft veil of silence. The Arno River moves gently beneath a structure that seems to defy expectation. It is not a wide, modern bridge of steel and concrete. Instead, it is something far more intimate, more unusual, more alive with history. A narrow passage of stone rises above the water, and upon it, a line of colorful buildings clings tightly together as if they have grown directly from the bridge itself. Ponte Vecchio does not behave like a typical bridge. It does not feel empty or open. Instead, it feels inhabited, as if the act of crossing and the act of living had merged into one continuous space. From a distance, it appears almost like a floating street suspended above the river, where homes, shops, and stories are stacked side by side, watching the water flow beneath them for centuries. As the first light touches its surface, the bridge begins to reveal its character. The stone base warms slowly in color, while the upper structure glows with soft shades of yellow, terracotta, and faded gold. Windows open one by one, and the reflection of light begins to ripple across the Arno below. The entire scene feels less like architecture and more like a living memory that has refused to fade. There is something quietly extraordinary about this place. Unlike grand bridges that impress with height or scale, Ponte Vecchio draws attention through closeness, density, and human presence. Every step across it feels like walking through a narrow street that just happened to float above water. The sound of footsteps blends with distant voices, the hum of daily life, and the gentle movement of the river beneath. But beneath this everyday rhythm lies something deeper. This is not just a bridge that connects to South Florence. It is a bridge that held centuries of life within its wall. Merchants, artisans, travelers, and generations of families who once lived directly above the flowing Arno. It has survived floods, war, and transformation, yet it still stands, not as a relic, but as a functioning part of the city's living body. And as you stand before it, watching the sunlight shape across an uneven silhouette, one question quietly rises. How can a bridge feel more like a place of life than a passage through it? Because Ponte Vecchio is not just something you cross. It is something you enter and never quite leave the same way you arrived. Ponte Vecchio is one of the most distinctive and historic bridges in the world. Located in the heart of Florence, Italy, it spans the Arno River as one of its narrowest points, connecting the bustling historic center of the city with Altrano district on the opposite bank. Unlike most bridges that serve only as passageway, Ponte Vecchio is a living structure filled with sharp history and centuries of continuous human activity. The name Ponte Vecchio literally means old bridge, a simple title that reflects its long and layered history. It is believed to have existed in some form since Roman times, although the current structure was rebuilt in 1345 after earlier versions were destroyed by floods. Since then, it has remained a central part of Florence's urban identity, surviving natural disaster, wars, and the constant evolution of the city around it. What makes Ponte Vecchio truly special is its unique architectural design. Instead of being an open bridge, it is lined with tightly packed buildings that seem to grow directly from its stone base. These structures house small shops traditionally occupied by butcher, fishmonger, and tanner in medieval times. However, in the 16th century, Grand Duke Ferdinand ordered that these noisy and unpleasant trades be replaced by goldsmiths and jewelers, transforming the bridge into an elegant commercial space that continues to this day. This unusual combination of infrastructure and habitation makes Ponte Vecchio feel more like a street suspended over water than a conventional bridge. Walking across it is not just a matter of crossing from one side of the river to the other. It is an immersive experience filled with narrow corridor, small storefront, and glimpses of the Arno flowing beneath through occasional openings. Another defining feature of the bridge is the Vasari Corridor, an elevated enclosed passageway built in 1565. This corridor runs above the shop and connects the Palazzo Vecchio with the Palazzo Pitti, allowing the ruling Medici family to move safely and privately across the city. This architectural addition further emphasize the bridge's importance not only as a commercial hub but also a political and strategic structure within Florence history. Today, Ponte Vecchio is one of the most visited landmarks in Italy, attracting travelers from all over the world. It is admired not for its size or engineering complexity, but for its atmosphere, an atmosphere shaped by centuries of daily life, trade, and tradition. The bridge is always alive, filled with the sound of conversation, the glow of jewelry display, and the constant movement of people passing through its narrow walkways. Despite its age, Ponte Vecchio was retained a remarkable sense of continuity. It is still a functioning bridge used by pedestrians every day, just as it was hundreds of years ago. At the same time, it remains a cultural symbol of Florence, representing the city's artistic heritage, resilience, and ability to blend history with everyday life. In many ways, Ponte Vecchio is not just a structure over water, but a reflection of Florence itself, layered, artistic, enduring, and full of life. It is this rare combination of history, architecture, and human presence that make Ponte Vecchio one of the most extraordinary bridges in the world. Ponte Vecchio stretches across the Arno River with a compact, slightly curved form that feels less like a monumental structure and more like a dense, slight city life, suspended above water. Its shape is not grand or expansive in the way of modern bridges. Instead, it is tight, intimate, and layered, with buildings packed closely together along its entire length. From a distance, it appears almost like a continuous row of houses bridges the two sides of Florence, as if the city itself refused to break apart and instead grew a passage to stay connected. The bridge is relatively short in length compared to many famous river crossings, but its visual density makes it feel substantial. It sits low over the Arno, supported by three stone segmental arches that rise gently from the water. These arches are not dramatic big but soft, rounded curves that give the structure a grounded, stable presence. A stone base is heavy and weathered, showing the marks of centuries of use, flood, and restoration. It carries a warm, earthy tone somewhere between beech, ochre, and faded limestone, changing softly with the shifting Italian light. Above this solid stone foundation, the bridge transforms completely. Rows of small buildings cling tightly to its surface, forming a continuous line of shops that appear almost organic in how they are arranged. The facades are painted in soft, sun-waxed colors: muted yellow, warm orange, pale pinks, and earthy browns. These tones blend together into a harmonious palette that feels distinctly Florentine, reflecting both Renaissance heritage. The upper level of the building are uneven in height and structure, giving the bridge a slightly irregular skyline. Roof tiled at different angles. Windows vary in size, and wooden shutters open and close a different rhythm throughout the day. this irregularity as character, making the bridge feel alive rather than constructed according to a strict geometric plan. It feels that though each building was shaped by human hand over time rather than designed all at once. One of the most striking visual elements is the way the bridge interacts with the Arno River below. The water flows slowly beneath the arches, reflecting fragments of the color from the buildings above. On calm days, the surface of the river acts like a mirror, doubling the image of the bridge in a softened, rippling reflection. On windy days, the water becomes more textured, breaking the reflection into abstract pattern of light and movement. In both cases, the river plays an essential role in completing the visual experience of the bridge. On either side of Ponte Vecchio lies the historic city of Florence, a landscape filled with Renaissance architecture, narrow streets, and warm terracotta rooftops. The buildings surrounding the river are tightly packed, rising in layer formation that create a sense of depth and continuity. Changstorm and Bell Tower appear in the distance, rising above the urban fabric like quiet landmark of history. The most famous of these is the Florence Cathedral Dome, which can often be glimpsed from nearby vantage point, acquiring the entire skyline in architecture's grandeur. Unlike bridges surrounded by vast natural landscape, Ponte Vecchio is deeply embedded within the city itself. There is no mountain or open sea here, only the dense, textural environment of Florence. This closeness makes the bridge feel like an extension of the street rather than a separate structure. The surrounding buildings somewhat lean toward it, reinforcing the idea that the bridge is part of the city's continuous fabric. At street level, the bridge is narrow and enclosed. Shops line both sides of the walkway, their windows filled with jewelry, gold, and intricate handcraft pieces. The display shimmers subtly under natural light, adding small highlight of the brilliance against the warm tone of stone and wood. The pathway itself is slightly uneven, shaped by centuries of footsteps, and it gently narrows, widen as it follows the curve of the bridge. Above the shop, the fushery corridor runs like a quiet, elevated passageway, barely visible from the street below. It appears as a continuous enclosed structure connecting buildings across the bridge, adding another layer to its already complex visual composition. These hidden passages give the bridge a sense of mystery, as if they are multiple walls stacked on top of each other within a single structure. Lighting play a crucial role in shaping the bridge appearance. In morning, sharp sunlight gradually warms the stone and brings out the pastel colors of the building. At midday, the bridge feels bright and lively, full of contrast and detail. In the evening, golden light spills across the Arno, casting long reflections that make the entire scene feel almost painted. At night, the bridge becomes quieter and more intimate, with warm interior light glowing softly from shop windows, creating a sense of comfort and continuity. Ponte Vecchio is not visually defined by grandeur or emptiness. Instead, its beauty comes from density, warmth, and human presence. Every surface carries texture, every color feels lived in, and every angle reveals something new. It is not just a bridge crossing a river, it is a layered piece of city life, suspended in time above the flowing heart of Florence. The history of Ponte Vecchio is deeply tied to the origin and evolution of Florence itself. Its earliest form is believed to date back to Roman times, when the first wooden bridge was constructed at a strategic crossing point over the Arno River. This location was not chosen randomly. The Arno was both a lifeline and a barrier for the ancient settlement, and a stable crossing point that essential for trade, military movement, and communication between communities on either side of the river. However, the bridge we see today is not the original Roman structure. Over the centuries, the Arno proved to be both a source of life and force of the structure. Floods repeatedly damaged and destroyed early versions of the bridge, forcing reconstruction multiple times. By the Middle Age, Florence has already rebuilt the bridge several times, each version reflecting the engineering knowledge and material available at the time. The current stone structure of Ponte Vecchio was completed in 1345, replacing an earlier medieval bridge that had been destroyed by devastating flood. The decision to rebuild it in stone rather than wood marked a significant shift in ambition and engineering confidence. Stone offered greater durability and resilience against the unpredictable nature of the Arno River, which was known for its sudden and powerful flood. The purpose of Ponte Vecchio was both practical and economic. It served as a vital crossing point connected to banks of Florence, enabling merchant travelers and residents to move freely across the city. At the time, bridges were not just infrastructure, they were essential components of urban life, shaping trade routes and influencing the development of entire neighborhoods. The bridge quickly became a commercial hub, lined with shops that sold goods directly by people passing through. In its early century, the bridge was home to a variety of trade. In its early centuries, the bridge was home to a variety of trades, many of which were considered essential but not particularly refined. Butcher, fishmonger, and leather worker occupied the small shop built along its length. This trade was chosen because they required constant access to water and generate waste that was easier to dispose of near the river. While this arrangement was practical, it also created issues of cleanliness and unpleasant odor, especially in such a densely populated urban environment. A major transformation occurred in 1565 during the rule of Grand Duke Ferdinand I de' Medici. In an effort to improve the image and atmosphere of the bridge, he ordered that all butcher shops be removed and replaced with goldsmith and jeweler. This decision fundamentally changed the character of Ponte Vecchio, elevating it from a purely functional marketplace to a more refined and prestigious commercial space. From that moment onward, the bridge became associated with craftsmanship, luxury, and artistic tradition. An identity is still maintained today. One of the most remarkable historical additions to Ponte Vecchio came in the same period. The construction of the Vasari Cathedral, designed by architect Giorgio Vasari in 1565. This elevated enclosed passageway was built to connect the Palazzo Vecchio, the political center of Florence, with the Palazzo Pitti, the residence of the Medici family. The cathedral ran directly above the shop on Ponte Vecchio, allowing the ruling family to move across the city safely and privately, without mingling with the public below. This architectural feature highlights the political importance of the bridge, transforming it into a controlled and strategic passageway for power as well as commerce. Despite its strength, Ponte Vecchio has not been immune to the challenges of nature. The Arno River has flooded Florence many times throughout history, sometimes with devastating consequences. One of the most catastrophic floods occurred in 1966 when the river overflowed and caused widespread destruction throughout the city. While Ponte Vecchio survived structurally, it was severely affected by water damage, debris, and mud. The shop and artwork within it suffered significant losses, and extensive restoration work was required to preserve its historical integrity. Throughout wars and political changes, Ponte Vecchio has remained remarkably resilient. During World War II, when German forces retreated from Florence in 1944, most of the city bridges were destroyed to slow the advance of Allied troops. Ponte Vecchio, however, was spared. Instead of being completely demolished, the surrounding buildings were destroyed to block access, but the bridge itself survived. It remained one of the few bridges in Florence to have endured the war, further deepening its symbolic significance as a structure that resists destruction. Over time, restoration efforts have carefully preserved both its structural stability and historical appearance. Engineers and historians have worked together to maintain its medieval character while ensuring it remains safe for daily use. This balance between preservation and functionality is one of the reasons Ponte Vecchio continues to feel alive, rather than frozen in time. Today, the bridge is still used daily by pedestrians, just as it had been for centuries. It continues to function as a crossing point, a marketplace, and a cultural landmark all at once. Its history is not a single story, but a continuous evolution shaped by water, commerce, politicity, and human resilience. Ponte Vecchio stands today not because it's never challenged, but because it has survived every challenge through again it and transformed each one into part of its identity. Ponte Vecchio is a remarkable example of medieval stone art engineering combined with urban architectural integration, make it fundamentally different from most bridges in the world. Unlike suspension or cable-stayed bridge that rely on steel cable and tower, Ponte Vecchio is built entirely on the principle of stone art construction, where weight is transferred through compression and distributed even across solid masonry support. This ancient engineering method gives the bridge both strength and permanence, allowing it to survive for nearly 7 centuries. The bridge is supported by 3 main segmental stone arches that span the Arno River. These arches are relatively shallow compared to classical Roman semicircular arches, a design choice that reduces the height of the bridge while allowing a wider, more practical passageway on top. This flatter arch structure was innovative for its time, as it created a stable crossing without requiring excessive elevation, which would have made access more difficult for pedestrians and merchants. The arches are carefully shaped so that every stone works in compression, pressing against its neighbors and transferring weight outward toward the foundation. Each of a bridge pier is deeply embedded into the riverbed, designed to withstand both the steady flow of the Arno and its predictable flooding. The piers are thick and robust, built to resist lateral water pressure and erosion. Over centuries, the foundations have proven remarkably resilient, even during major floods that have damaged much of Florence's infrastructure. The ability of this sport to endure constant environmental stress is one of the key reasons the bridge still stands today. What makes Ponte Vecchio especially unique in engineering terms is not just the stone arch structure itself, but the addition of continuous building constructed directly on top of it. This transformed the bridge from a simple crossing into a hybrid structure, a combination of infrastructure and habitated urban space. Each building along the bridge is integrated into the structural system, meaning that the load of the shop, homes, and walkway is distributed across the arches below. This required carefully planning to ensure that the added weight would not compromise the stability of the bridge. Unlike modern bridges, which are often designed with open deck and minimal surface load, Ponte Vecchio functions as a dense, multiple-layer system. The upper structure creates additional vertical load, which must be balanced precisely across the arches and piers. The success of this design demonstrates the advanced understanding of weight distribution and constructional harmony achieved by medieval builders, even without modern mathematical tools or simulation technology. Another distinctive feature is the bridge-enclosed urban layout. The buildings on Ponte Vecchio are tightly packed together, forming a continuous corridor rather than separate structure. They create a unique spatial effect where the bridge feels like a narrow street suspended above water. The architecture is irregular and organic, with each building slightly different in height, width, and facade design. This like a perfect symmetry is not a flaw, but a reflection of a gradual development over time, where structures were modified, rebuilt, and expanded according to the needs of different eras. A major engineering and architectural addition to the bridge is the Vasari Corridor, built in 1565. This elevated passageway runs above the shop, connecting Palazzo Vecchio with Palazzo Pitti. Structurally, the corridor required precise integration with the existing buildings, as it had to pass through and over them without compromising their stability. The corridor is supported by a combination of walls, arches, and concealed structural elements that distribute its weight along the bridge existing framework. This addition turned Ponte Vecchio into a multi-level structure, combining public commerce below with private political movement above. One of the most impressive aspects of the Ponte Vecchio is its long-term adaptability. Despite being built in 14th century, it has undergone continuous modification to accommodate changing uses, from butter shop in the Middle Ages to jewelry store in the Renaissance and modern era. Each transformation requires careful structural consideration to ensure that new loads, material, and layout did not weaken the original stone framework. The bridge is also notable for its resistance to hydraulic force. The Arno River is known for its strong seasonal variation and historical flooding, which have destroyed many other bridges in Florence. Ponte Vecchio low, compact design reduces wind resistance and water impact, while its strong piers have deflect and absorb flood energy. This combination of low profile and solid foundation had contributed significantly to its survival over centuries. Unlike many famous bridges that are defined by the single engineering innovation, Ponte Vecchio's uniqueness comes from the combination of multiple factors: stone art, stability, integrated urban construction, adaptive reuse, and historical layering. It is not a static structure designed in one moment at a time, but a continuously evolving system shaped by centuries of human activity. Even today, it remains fully functional as a pedestrian bridge, carrying thousands of visitors daily while still supporting active commercial space. The dual-function structural bridge and living marketplace remain extremely rare in global architecture. In essence, Ponte Vecchio is not just a bridge built over water. It is a complex engineered ecosystem where architecture, commerce, and infrastructure merge into a single continuous structure that has stood the test of time. Ponte Vecchio is not only one of Florence's most famous landmarks, but also one of the most storied bridges in the world. Over centuries, it had gathered a rich collection of legend, cultural meaning, unusual facts, and human stories that go far beyond its physical structure. It is a place where daily life and history overlap so closely that it's become difficult to separate what is architecture and what is memory. One of the most fascinating historical facts about Ponte Vecchio is transformation under the Medici family in 16th century. Before this change, the bridge was filled by butcher shop, fishmonger, and leather worker. These trades were practical but created strong order and waste that flowed directly into the Arno River. When Grand Duke Ferdinand I de' Medici decided to elevate the image of the bridge, he ordered the removal of all bridges and replaced them with goldsmith and jeweler. This decision permanently changed the identity of Ponte Vecchio, turning it from a working-class marketplace into a symbol of luxury, craftsmanship, and artistic refinement. Even today, the tradition of jewelry shop continues, making it one of the most elegant commercial bridges in the world. Another remarkable feature of the Ponte Vecchio is the Vasari corridor, which adds an entirely different layer of meaning to the structure. Built in 1565 by Giorgio Vasari, this elevated passageway allowed the Medici family to move privately between their residence at Palazzo Pitti and the government center at Palazzo Vecchio. What makes this corridor so interesting is that it passes directly above the shop on the bridge, almost hidden from public view. It represents a world above the everyday life of Florence, where rulers could observe the city without being seen. In modern times, part of the corridor has been opened for exhibition, but for centuries it remained a secret passage of political power. Ponte Vecchio is also famous for its survival during World War II. In 1944, as German forces retreated from Florence, most of the city bridges were destroyed to slow the advancing Allied troops. However, Ponte Vecchio was the only bridge spared from total destruction. Instead of demolishing it completely, the surrounding buildings at both ends were destroyed to block access. The exact reason was spared remains a subject of debate. Some say a direct order from Adolf Hitler saved it because of its beauty. Others believe the local German officers chose to preserve it out of respect. Whatever the reason, this decision allowed Ponte Vecchio to remain intact, while much of Florence infrastructure was rebuilt after the war. There was also many cultural traditions connected to the bridge. One of the most well-known is the practice of love rock, where couples attach padlocks to part of the bridge as a symbol of eternal love and commitment. Although this tradition has been restricted in recent years to protect the structure, it reflects the emotional connection people feel toward Ponte Vecchio. For many visitors, the bridge is not just a historical site, but a place associated with personal memories, romance, and promises. Artistically, Ponte Vecchio has long been a source of inspiration for painter, poet, and writer. During the Renaissance and beyond, artists were drawn to its unusual structure and vibrant atmosphere. Unlike other bridges that appear open and minimal, Ponte Vecchio presents a dense, colorful composition of building, reflection, and human activity. Its visual complexity makes it a natural subject for artistic interpretation, symbolizing the layered nature of Florence itself. Many artworks depict the bridge at sunset, when golden light reflects off the Arno and highlight the warm tone of the building. Another interesting fact is that Ponte Vecchio has always been a pedestrian bridge. Unlike many historic bridges that were later adapted for vehicle, Ponte Vecchio was never designed to carry cars or heavy traffic. This had helped preserve its original structure and atmosphere. Walking across it today feels remarkably similar to how it might have felt centuries ago, with narrow pathway, closed door front, and constant human presence. This continuity between past and present is one of the reasons it feels so immersive and alive. The bridge also had a unique acoustic environment because of its enclosed structure and narrow passageway. Sound behaved differently compared to open bridges. Voices, footsteps, and sharp noises blend together, creating a constant but gentle hum of life. At quieter times of day, especially early morning, the sound of the river below can be clearly heard through the opening in the structure, adding a natural rhythm to the human activity above. A lesser known detail is that Ponte Vecchio has been rebuilt and repaired multiple times throughout its history, but always in a way that preserves its original appearance. Even after flood, including devastating Arnold flood of 1966, restoration efforts focus on maintaining its historical identity rather than modernizing it. This careful preservation has allowed it to remain one of the most authentic medieval bridges still in use. The bridge also played an important role in Florence identity as a city of art and craftsmanship. The jewelry shops that line it are not just commercial spaces. Many of them are family-run businesses that have existed for generations. Some workshops continue traditional goldsmith techniques that date back to the Renaissance, making the bridge a living continuation of Florence artistic heritage. Ultimately, what makes Ponte Vecchio so fascinating is the way it combines so many layers of meaning in one place. It is at once a bridge, a marketplace, a residence, and a political passage, and a cultural symbol. Few structures in the world carry such a dense concentration of history and human experience. It is not just remembered because it's old or beautiful. It is remembered because it has always been alive, changing, adapting, and continuing reflect the people who moved through it. The beauty of Ponte Vecchio is not the kind that overwhelms with scale or engineering grandeur. Instead, it is a beauty that grows slowly, quietly, and intimately, revealed through texture, color, and the feeling of human presence layered across centuries. It is not a bridge that stands apart from the city. It is a bridge that belongs entirely to it, as if Florence itself had folded a piece of its own life across the Arno River. What makes Ponte Vecchio so emotionally powerful is its sense of closeness. Unlike vast, open bridges that emphasize distance and horizon, Ponte Vecchio draws everything inward. The buildings lean toward each other, the walkway feels narrow and personal, and the river flows just beneath a dense corridor of life. This creates a feeling that almost cinematic. You are not observing the bridge from a distance. You are inside it, surrounded by a world that have held century of century. In the early morning, before the shop fully opened and before the crowd arrived, the bridge feels almost sacred in its stillness. Soft light touches the stone base first, then slowly climbs upward to the warm-toned facade of the building. The Arno below it calm, reflecting fragments of the sky and architecture in a slightly distorted mirror. In this quiet moment, Ponte Vecchio feels like a memory of Florence rather than a part of its present. There is a softness in the air, and the entire structure seems to breathe slowly and as if waking up after a long night. As the day progresses, the bridge becomes more alive, not just visually but emotionally. Shops shutters open, revealing display of gold and jewelry that catch the light in subtle flashes of brilliance. The narrow walkway filled with footsteps, conversation in different languages, and the constant movement of people passing, looking, and continuing forward. Yet even in this activity, the bridge never feels chaotic. Instead, it feels balanced, as if centuries of human movement have already established a rhythm that everyone unconsciously follows. The color of Ponte Vecchio during daylight are especially striking. The stone base remains earthly and grounded, while the upper structure glows with sharp Renaissance tones, warm yellow, faded orange, and gentle red shaped by time. These colors are not artificial. They feel arch, as if they have absorbed sunlight for hundreds of years and now reflect it back in a calmer, more subdued form. The combination of stone, wood, and plaster create a texture that is visually rich without being overwhelming. At midday, when the sun is high, the bridge becomes more defined and contrast-rich. Shadow deepen under the arches, and the reflection in the Arno sharpen. The light reveals the irregularities of the architecture of the slight shape in height. The uneven window lines, the subtle variation in structure that make it feel organic rather than engineered. In this light, Ponte Vecchio feels honest. It does not hide its age or complexity. Instead, it presents them openly as part of its identity. In the late afternoon, the atmosphere shifts again. The light becomes warmer, softer, and more directional. Golden tone washed over the building, and the river began to reflect the sky more vividly. This is often considered the most beautiful moment of the day on Ponte Vecchio. The entire structure feels like it had been dipped in amber light. The jewelry shop began to glow from within, adding tiny points of brilliance that contrast with the aging stone. It is a moment where commerce and history, light and shadow, all seem to blend into a single visual composition. At night, Ponte Vecchio transforms into something more intimate and emotional. The crowd within and the bridge become more quieter, though never completely still. Warm light spills from shop windows, illuminating small sections of the walkway. The reflection on the Arno sharpened into elongated streaks of gold and orange. The buildings appear closer together in the darkness, their outline more pronounced, their detail more mysterious. It feels less like a place of passage and more like a hidden corridor suspended above water. Seasonal changes deepen this emotional effect even further. In spring, the air feels lighter and the surrounding city comes alive with freshness. The bridge feels renewed, as if participating in the rebirth of Florence itself. In summer, strong sunlight intensifies its colors, making the stone and plaster glow more vividly. The long evening creates extended golden hour where the bridge feels almost timeless. In autumn, Ponte Vecchio becomes more reflective. The light softens and the tone deepens, and the atmosphere grows more nostalgic. There is a sense of transition, as if the bridge is quietly observing the passing of another cycle. In winter, especially during misty morning or light rain, the bridge takes on more contemplative mood. The color moves slightly, the river darkens, and the entire scene feels quieter, more introspective, almost like a painting washed in sharp gray light. But beyond all this visual transformation, the true beauty of Ponte Vecchio lies in how it makes people feel. It is a bridge that does not create distance but closeness. It does not emphasize speed or efficiency but presence and experience. People slow down when they walk across it, not because they must, but because the space itself encouraged them to do so. There is a sense that every part of the bridge had been shaped not just by architect, but by generation of human life. Every shop, every stone, every reflection in the river carries echoes of those who came before. This layering of time creates an emotional depth that is difficult to describe but easy to feel. Ponte Vecchio is admired not because it's perfect, but because it is alive in its imperfection. It had aged without losing its identity. It had changed without losing its soul. It exists at the intersection of history and daily life, where beauty is not something separate from function, but something that grows from it. In the end, Ponte Vecchio is not simply beauty to look at. It is beautiful to experience because it reminds you that a place can hold both the past and the present in the same breath, without ever letting either one fade away. As the journey across Ponte Vecchio comes to an end, what may remain is not just the image of a bridge, but the feeling of having walked through something far more intimate than architecture. It is not remembered as a structure alone, but as an atmosphere, a narrow passage where time does not move in a straight line, but instead falls gently over itself, layer upon layer, like the city of Florence itself. Standing at either end of the bridge, there is a quiet realization that Ponte Vecchio does not exist a part of life. It is not separate from the city, nor does it rise above it in dominance. Instead, it belongs completely within it. The Arno River flows beneath it as it always had, reflecting light, weather, and movement, while above it, generations of human activity continue in a rhythm that feels both ancient and immediate. There is something deeply emotional in the way the bridge holds its presence. It does not try to impress with height or distance. Instead, it draws everything closer: people, buildings, sound, and stories. Every step across it feels like entering a space where time has condensed, where centuries of day life is still echoed in the narrow walkway and warm stone wall. Even in moments of silence, the bridge never feels empty. It felt inhabited with memory. As daylight faded, Ponte Vecchio began to change its voice. The golden light of the evening softened its edge, and the reflection in the Arno grew longer and more fluid. The jewelry shop began to glow from within, casting small points of warmth into the gathering dusk. At its hour, the bridge feels almost like a lantern suspended above water, quiet, steady, and alive with subtle light. It is no longer just a place of crossing, but a place of pause, where people slow down without realizing why. And night finally settles over Florence. The bridge becomes something even more intimate. The crowd within. Footsteps become softer and the world beyond it feels distant. The light from the shop and nearby streets shimmer across the river, breaking into delicate reflections that move gently with the current. In this stillness, Ponte Vecchio feels less like a physical structure and more like a memory made visible, something between reality and dream. What makes it so unforgettable is not only its appearance, but its continuity. Ponte Vecchio has never stopped being what it is. Through flood, war, political changes, and centuries of transformation, it has remained both functional and alive. It is still crossed every day, still filled with voices, still carrying the quiet weight of human presence. Few places in the world manage to preserve this balance between past and present so completely. There is also a kind of emotional closeness that defines the bridge, unlike vast monuments that create distance between observer and object. Ponte Vecchio surrounds you. It narrows your perspective, brings you inward, and makes you aware of every detail. The texture of stone, the glow of light through shop window, the shower of water just below to your feet. It is not something you simply look at. It is something you move through, and in doing so, become more part of. In a world that often moves quickly, Ponte Vecchio feels like a reminder of slowness. It invites you to notice that what is usually overlooked, the rhythm of footsteps on ancient stone, the reflection of building in water, the quiet exchange between light and shadow as the day passes. It teaches without words that beauty is not always found in scale or perfection, but in presence and endurance. Perhaps that is why it continues to captivate people from over the world. It does not demand admiration. It earns quietly. Over time, it does not need to be understood fully to be felt deeply. It simply exists and in an extent. It holds together centuries of human life in one continuous, narrow passage above the Arno. And so, as you leave Ponte Vecchio behind, there is a lingering awareness that you are not really living it at all. It remains in the mind as a place where history is not behind glass or written in books, but lived daily in stone and light and water. Because Ponte Vecchio is not just a bridge over the Arno, it is a reminder that some places are not built to be observed from a distance, but to be entered, experienced, and carried forever in memory.